Hello and welcome to episode 208 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is the actress, incredible singer and just all-round beautiful person. I'm joined by the amazing Nina Bergman. We get to sit down and talk in great detail about her acting career so far, her songwriting and so much more. And we get to touch base and talk all about Hell Hath No Fury, which is her brand new film, which is out now and is an amazing war film, and she is phenomenal from start to finish. And that interview will be coming up in just a couple of moments' time. What I always like to do on the intro for every episode of Mark and Me is use it to touch base and talk about my last episode. So on episode 207, I was joined by the absolutely incredible Zach Wilde. An amazing interview from start to finish, and I received so many emails and tweets from people saying just how positive it made them feel. And I want to say again a massive thanks to Zach for coming on the show. But today it's all about Nina Bergman, and honestly she's fantastic. So I think the best thing to do is to get straight to it. So here's me and Nina talking all things film. So Nina, thank you for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
It's a pleasure being here.
Nina, what I'd like to do today for anyone that's tuning in, maybe for the first time to discover this podcast or your work, is give them an idea about how you got into acting. I know obviously you've done songwriting, you sing, you've done acting, but right back in the early days, can you remember those first films you saw or maybe performances that made you want to get into this world?
Yes. I did theater since I was like tiny. I think my first performance was when I was 4 years old. So
Wow.
I started on the stage. So my dad is a professor at the Danish Film School, so I wasn't really allowed to watch TV. So like my first adult movie, I wasn't allowed to watch any like kids movies. So my first adult movie that I ever saw was Thelma and Louise.
Oh,
And
wow.
it changed my life.
Yeah, that's a hell of a good one to start on.
bought a Thunderbird and came to America and bought a Thunderbird with my first big cat. Yeah, it changed my life. So and then my grandfather is one of Russia's greatest actors, Pavel Kadochnikov, who did the original Chekhov and was in Ivan the Terrible, and he was one of those. So for me, acting was always something very special, and especially the movies, and that's what led to going to school and wanted to take it seriously. But I've been doing it since I was 4 years old. My dad put me in all of the student films and stuff, since I was little. So I've been doing it my whole life.
That's amazing. And with your obviously family having such a good name in the industry, did you feel pressure like, oh my God, like everyone's going to be looking at me, comparing me to my family? Or did you just think I'm going to do this on my own and make a name for myself?
I was one of those that I didn't want to do acting because of my grandfather. I wanted to, but I didn't. I was, I danced ballet. I was a ballerina from 4 to 18. I sang in the rock band. I did everything because I was one of those. I wanted to do it on my own. I didn't want it, especially in Russia. I didn't want to be, the granddaughter of someone. I wanted to do it on my own. Yeah. So, I think if anything, it almost held me back because, I was like, I can never be like him. And when you're little, you all you want to do is like be like other people and emulate them, instead of being my own,
Yeah.
So I think it almost held me back because I was like, your grandfather's Russian's greatest actor, who worked with all of the best directors and the best plays. And what do you do? And I look identical to him. I don't look like my parents. I look like a female version of him, which didn't help. So, but I found my own now, and I'm happy. It took a little while.
So I was going to say, what I normally ask people is if their family is supportive, because not everyone comes from a background like yours. So some people would be saying, I don't think it's a risk to try and take to go into the industry because it's difficult to make a name for yourself. But I suppose if your dad's putting you in films when you're 4 years old and must be so proud and pushing you all the way to make sure that you go as far as you can in this difficult world to make a name for yourself in.
Yeah, my dad is Russian, so it's one of those, he would never tell me he was proud, but he would tell the world. He was very, very, very hard on me. And for me, he was like, find someone rich who can take care of you because you're pretty, but you're not beautiful, and you're talented, but you know what I mean? Like, just find, Russian mentality, that's how I was raised. And then with a feminist mom who was very much like, you don't need a man, you can do it on your own, don't let anyone take care of you, you can do this. And my mom not really understanding why, my mom in Denmark, it's a little different. People are focused where I grew up on the quality of life and not career, and I was like a little career girl since I was 4 years old. I had like a mission, and I worked like crazy and trained 8 hours a day, and I wasn't a normal kid. I was very focused. So yeah, my mom just never understood it. She was like, relax, like why, you know what I mean? Live life, enjoy life, and yeah, so it was like very mixed messages. I left when I was 14. I came to London.
Yes.
I went to school, in Erding Academy when I was 14. I got a scholarship, and I was like, see ya.
Did that feel like a breath of fresh air because you weren't kind of under their wings anymore and you could break away and not be kind of watched on every move you do? Did you feel like it was that chance for you to then be yourself?
Definitely. Definitely. I remember coming to England and I felt free. I felt like nobody knew you. So you could think however you wanted to think. You could be however you wanted to be. And I was at a school, musical theater school, where it was like, it was a tough school. So, and people wanted to work as hard as me. And yeah, I really, I felt at home. I felt more at home there than I did at home in Denmark, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That's a young age though, isn't it, to make that move? You must have been quite frightened and kind of like, oh my God, what's it going to be like? Because I went to university at 18 and I remember leaving the nest and being scared then. And, I'd had a bit more years on you at that point, but I was terrified to kind of leave and make a name for myself and try and break free.
For me, it was, the opposite. I was fearless. Yeah. I was just completely fearless. I didn't know what could happen. And I'm one of those, I have a little bit of adrenaline addiction. I had to go to like get some help. I love anything that makes you feel alive, and I felt very alive. For me, the language was hard because I'm actually still extremely shy, and I couldn't really, I didn't speak any English, and I was so bad at it, and I had a hard time expressing myself, and I was super shy, not knowing the language. And so that part was hard, because I couldn't speak it.
No.
So it was hard. Yeah.
But I can't imagine that you'd have been, I know you are, but I can't imagine that you'd have been nervous because you just seem so ambitious and so striving on everything you do. You want to do the best at being an actress. You want to do the best at being a singer. You want to get up on stage and perform in front of people and do modeling. And it kind of feels like with that comes that confidence that you should have installed straight away because you need to try and impress people. But it sounds crazy when you say to me that it was the opposite.
Yeah, I'm one of those where, if you focus on what you're doing, if you're like, I was going to, like, if I'm performing a song, let's say, or doing a play, I'm so focused on the character or whatever I'm doing that I forget to be nervous. But like these kind of interviews right now, to me, it's excruciating.
Hopefully this isn't too painful.
I can't hide,
Yeah.
I can't hide. In a character or focus, on, it's still hard to me, but, I've done a lot of work on myself,
Yeah.
Be transparent, and just be who you are, but it's taken a lot of work. Yeah. But I was a super shy kid. I mean, I didn't go to school for like a year because I was so shy. I just stayed at home. I was one of those kids. I was just like completely, but then you give me something to do on a stage and I forget that I'm shy.
So what do you do to kind of change that? Because there's a lot of people that listen that have anxiety problems or mental health issues where they struggle every day to trying to go out and try and just be a normal person, never mind trying to be famous or try and stand out. But how do you turn it on its head then when you feel like you just want to lock yourself away and not go out, but really you've got to be on stage or you've got to perform? Do you just focus purely on that moment and not the reaction of everyone else? Or are you focusing just on the job that you've got ahead of you?
Yeah, focus on the why. Like,
Yeah.
why am I doing this? Because I love what I'm doing. I love this story. I want to bring this story to life. I love what I do. I want to be the best, and I just get so immersed in what I'm doing that I just forget everything else. And I think when I get in trouble is when I start thinking about what other people think. I'm not doing it. And like, find your why is like, I never did it because I wanted to be famous. I never did it because I wanted, to be, I did have like a hole inside I needed to fill, but it wasn't to be loved and getting the approval. For me, it was more, I loved what I do. I loved, disappearing into these parts or songs or whatever I'm doing. And that's why I'm doing it. So if I just focus on that, all that other stuff kind of goes away,
Yeah.
you know? like especially with a stage, like every time before I go out on stage, whether it's a play or perform, I mean, I always feel like I'm about to throw up because I'm so nervous. And then as soon as I go out there and I get back into why I'm doing it and the character, what essentially when you sing, you're playing a character too. It just all goes away. And it's like, for me, the only place where everything makes sense, you're in the moment, your brain stops doing, all that stuff,
Of course.
and you can just disappear into whatever you're doing. And then when you're done, the brain starts again. Oh my God, I didn't do this and I fucked up here and I could have done this and maybe I should have, and then the brain comes back. But at least I have, like, however long the show is or whatever, I have that a little piece, the same
Uh,
on set. It's the same on set, the same
do
exact.
you feel that comes with part of being such an adrenaline junkie, which you've mentioned today, because you're then out of your comfort zone? So it is then trying to tackle something, isn't it? Even though it's nerves and it's you're worrying and you are thinking to yourself, "Oh my God, this is terrifying." Is that because you're adrenaline junkie and you're putting yourself in that situation to then be frightened and be scared and overcome something?
I never thought about that.
I've only just thought about it now. I hadn't planned that, but I just thought about when talking to you. It's the same feeling probably going on stage than going down a mountain on a rope. You're scared, you're in fear,
Yeah.
you're not sure if you're going to do it, but then you just got to. So it kind of
Yeah, you
relates.
jump. It feels like, yeah, you jump in the deep end. Yeah, I mean, that's, I ride motorcycles, and whenever I'm stressed, I just jump on that bike and I just go flying, and everything disappears because it's that same. You're just one with your
I get
bike and
it.
the road, and you can't think about too much because you're just, you're in. And I think it's, yeah, it's exactly that same feeling. I think now that you're saying it, I'm just recreating it. Like, I jump out of airplanes. I do, I've always been, into that. So maybe, yeah, maybe that's why I'm doing it.
There you go. This could be a counselling session today and it could work out
Yeah,
all
I
the
know.
ways.
Yeah, you just helped me figure out my whole life right now.
There you
Yeah.
go. I'll send you a bill at the end of today. So after your time in London, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, but didn't you go over to New York? Is that correct? You spent some time in
I
America.
um I went and studied in Moscow first for a year because
Wow.
why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I got a scholarship to a school called the Bolshoi Theater. It's one of the best
Yeah.
ballet schools in the world. And when I got in and got a full scholarship, I was like, well, off we go. So I was there for a year, and then I came to New York when I was 16.
Was that the time when you really believed this is what you want to do? Was that the kind of age where you knew you were mature enough to make the decisions? You'd had a bit of experience of coming to Europe. New York is the place, isn't it? If you want to get seen, you want to be in a band, you want to start singing, you want to get a modeling career, New York is the place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I uh, took like a summer dance class in Denmark, and the guy had like like this crazy calendar, and he was so busy, and he was choreographing for Madonna, and he was doing all this stuff, and he told me he was from New York, and I was like, okay, New York is a place where you have like schedules and you do things and you make things happen, and so I knew again at a young age, America is where it's at. So when I was in Moscow, I mean, I knew from day one I wanted to go to America. I just remember thinking after Bolshoi Theater, I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm going to start thinking too much.
Yeah.
So I just kind of went. I just got a ticket. I had $75 in my pocket, and off I went.
That is a true typical story, isn't it? I had the last few dollars in my back pocket, I got on a plane, and then I went for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where it was like, if I don't do it now, you know, that was the feeling. When when am I going to do it, and will I do it? And then I went, and that's when I got that same feeling I had in London, except like I felt like this was it for me. I was like, okay, I feel a part of, and because even in England, it's a it's a little cliquey, especially when you're Scandinavians. Like they didn't really want to hire Scandinavian. It was hard to break in. But once I in England, made friends, they're still my friends today. They're like the best people that I've ever met, the British, but they're it's hard to get in. Where in New York, like everyone just had their arms open. We're just all, I mean, what is Manhattan? You know what I mean? It's a melting pot. So I felt embraced, and I felt like I was like, okay, I found my place, my home.
So is this the point where you felt like the career was then turned into a real possibility that it could become something that you'll do for the rest of your life? Is New York the time where you kind of believe this is what I want to do? I'm in the limelight. I'm in the best place I could be. This is it. It's sink or swim.
Yes. New York was definitely that, but I learned very fast that to be taken seriously, I needed to go to school. I needed to have. I could be modeling and doing, cheesy little parts, but to be taken seriously, I had to go to school. And I realized very fast that what I wanted to be was a craft, like becoming a doctor, and I have to, or a ballerina. You have to take class, you have to go to school. I wanted to really learn it and perfect my craft. And I realized I didn't have the tools. When I landed, I mean, I was 16 by myself. I didn't know anyone, and I was talking like this, I'm like, hello, I'm Nina Bergman. Why isn't anyone taking me seriously, and I couldn't really understand why. So that's what I did.
Incredible.
I became an amateur boxer to make money and then pay for, and then I got my GED and my SATs and, auditioned like crazy and finally got in to Juilliard and then transferred to NYU. Yeah.
I love that you just throw in, I just did a bit of amateur boxing to make some money, as you do. I'm a bit skint, so I'll just become a boxer.
Well, it was a natural progression. I was a angry chick with, crazy footwork, as a ballerina at the Bolshoi Theater. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. So boxing was a piece of cake compared to being a ballerina, I tell you that.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Like I've danced on broken toes, getting your nose broken a couple of times is like, I can handle that, getting some scars, and I can handle that. Ballet is hard.
It's better than working in a shop as well and serving customers that are just going to moan. If you can go out there and punch people and take a kick then and a punch, then,
But I did. I worked in a restaurant for one day and then I got fired. And the problem was that, NYU is more than 30,000 a semester. How are you going to make 30,000 tables?
It's insane.
Yeah. So I had to find a way to make money to pay.
Obviously with the music and obviously performing in bands and doing acting and a bit of everything, you obviously were involved in a lot of video shorts, and you probably obviously got to see how a production works and be involved on big sets and getting an idea of just about how it all comes together. So is it at that point you're really thinking, this is what I want to do? I want to get involved in a feature-length film. I want to get involved in video game work, as voice work, a bit of everything.
I mean, as I said, I knew since I was a little girl, this is just what I wanted, and I never questioned it. That's why, like, people come up to me and they're like, well, how did you start? And how did you know? And I was like, I just knew. I know, like, I'm not going to eat animals because I love them, and I'm going to do art. I'm going to be a performer in some sort of way. I didn't know how. I just knew I need to express, and the music was I played one character, where acting, I felt like I could, I have so many things I needed to come out, and I couldn't be all of that in music because the rock world is very, it's very like it's in a box a little bit, and I couldn't express myself. So I just knew, like right away, this is what I wanted, and I never questioned it, and I never, I was going to die trying. That's why I tell people, if you're thinking about it, if you just thinking if I should do this, I was like, don't. I never had a choice.
No.
Quit all the time. I quit every other day. I'm like, I'm done. I can't do it. The business, I hate it. Because the business is so crazy. I love the craft and the art, but not the business. And I quit every other day, but I don't.
It pulls you back.
Pulls me. I mean, what the hell should I do? Like
Exactly.
maybe I would come and work for you and interview people. I don't know.
Let's do that. Let's go to, we'll make it, instead of Mark and me, Mark and Nina.
Mark and Nina. Yeah, this doesn't sound too shabby.
That sounds
But,
good. So
yeah, it sounds good.
So at the moment, obviously, you're promoting your latest film, and this is why we're doing the press at the moment. So, Hell Hath No Fury, and this is a film I got to see earlier on today, which is great. And genuinely, I loved it from start to finish. I think it must have been a really tough role to take on. I can imagine the training conditions and getting into this role must have been really demanding for you, and probably one of the biggest roles you've taken to date.
Yes, it was. I mean, at that time, it was it was again, it was a challenge. It was, I read the script and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. Can I do French? I don't speak French. Can I serve this role? Will I do it justice? And I started to get that feeling like, and then I was like, yeah, that's good. We like that feeling, that means I'm really excited and I really want it. So I really wanted it and I had to fight for the part. I was like, I read it and I was like, I could just feel my whole being. I was like, I must play her. I just felt it so deeply,
That's good though, because it means you weren't ever going to let anyone else take it. Your determination at the audition and meeting the director and stuff, you must have been like, look, I'm going to fucking do this part. This is mine.
Yes, but I don't believe in saying, I believe in showing.
Yeah.
Right. I believe in acting. So I begged to do the table read. They had another actress, a big Russian actress. And I begged, I was like, she wasn't here because of COVID. And I was like, please let me do the table read. And he's like, Jesse was like, I can't do that. I mean, it's not fair for you. We already cast it and we can't pay you. And I was like, no. You don't need to pay. It's favor. I'll just show up, read. No big deal. Meanwhile, I get the script like at 10 o'clock and I'm like fixing my hair. I'm reading the script. I'm sleeping 2 hours. I just embodied the part and I showed up crazy prepared. And I was like, I came as Marie,
Yeah.
And I did the table read. And then after the table read, everyone was like, oh, but that's her. Like, why are you hiring this Russian girl? Like, your lead is all the other actors, like, she's right there. Like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, you know what I mean?
I love it.
And then, I didn't know because they had that other girl. And then finally, a lot of the other cast members, I worked with Louis before, Louis Mandalore. I worked with him on Doom, another movie in Bulgaria, and I worked with a couple of Timothy Murphy. I worked with a couple of them before, and they were all like, giving the director pressure, and then finally, last minute they were like, "Okay, Nina, take it."
I love it.
Yeah, I had to beg.
And did you get into this character and study many other war films to try and give you an idea? I mean, are you a fan of war films? Because obviously they have to be done with respect and done well to earn any kind of strong reviews out there with so many in competition. But if you think of the classics out there like Platoon, which I absolutely love, Full Metal Jacket, all these classics, did you start studying them to give yourself a better understanding to get into the mindset of this character?
No, I don't do that. When I study, I would never watch movies similar because I'm such a sponge that I would start absorbing what they're doing. What I did was I found as many stories as I could about these women, female resistant fighters. And I read stories and I did all the research I could on World War II. And I wanted to know what it was like to be in Ravensbrück, that particular place she was. It was one of the worst concentration camps. And I watched everything I could get my hands on. I cried myself to sleep every night because, in Denmark, you do go to the concentration camps as a part of your education and you do learn about World War II. But I didn't, I didn't know to what extent. I mean, after doing all that research, I mean, it messed me up. I have to say, it messed me up. And then I just started doing the research and filling myself up with as much information as I could. to play her, and you know what it was like, and what these women looked like. You know, they looked like kind of stray dogs because they were working so much at Ravensbrück, but they were shredded, you know, but like too skinny kind of, and you know the things that endured. And I would just keep rewatching it, you know, and torture myself.
It must
And
be
just
really
try.
tough.
It was awful. You know, it was I remember halfway through the movie, you know, I slept 2 or 3 hours every night, and I would watch all this stuff before I went to bed. And I was like, Nina, why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing this? And I was like, well, because I think these women's stories, you know, Jesse based it mainly after two women's stories. I think it's so important that we tell those stories. And I think it's so important we don't forget to repeat history. You know, it could very easily happen, I believe, you know. And I think it's just so important to give these women a voice. So and what a privilege to, you know, I just, you know, pretended and did the best I could to live in her shoes. But what an amazing opportunity to try to live in her shoes. And, you know, as a human being, I just felt like when I was done with that role, I was a different human being. I mean, these women have strength that I can't even fathom. You know, people are like, oh, you're so tough, you're a badass. I'm like, I'm not, like, not compared to these women, you
No.
know. Yeah, you know, so I grew a lot, you know, all my favorite parts, I grow a lot. I learn from them, you know, I become a better human being. I get a little more open, and I get a little more understanding, and I think I get a little more humble every time I play a part, you know.
And being the leading role, obviously prior to that in the shorts and stuff, and getting into the characters that you've done previously, to have all the focus on you, you know, look at the poster, it's yourself right in the middle. Is this now the moment where you're really thinking you want to do a lot more, or are you thinking you want to take a step back because it was so intimidating and so tough at times, or is it just a point where now you're like, I want to do bigger, better every time?
I didn't want the movie to end, you know, it was COVID, so it was a very small set, and
Yeah.
amazing actors, you know, a lot of method actors like myself, you know, Timothy Murphy's from the Actors Studio, and, you know, Daniel Bernhardt, and they all wanted to do what I wanted to do. They just wanted to make it as real as we could, and do the justice to the movie and the time and the story. So after that, I was like, I want more. That's what I want. You know. So I just finished one in Canada, with another, you know, I can't talk too much about it. Another, it was a play, kind of it's like written by a play, two characters, again based on a true story, more or less, with a French director, and a lot of the cast was from Downton Abbey. You
Oh,
know, so
wow.
amazing, yeah. Ellen Leach was actually my co-star. I think I'm allowed to say that.
Okay,
Who
that's
did
amazing.
the chauffeur in Downton Abbey, and I mean, you know, again, these British actors. Damn it, you know, he's not British, but he, you know, lived there when he did the show, and he just worked with some of the greatest, and they're just so talented. And so I finished that, and then I'm doing an action one now that I start next week, with Patrick Kilpatrick, and then after that I'm gonna do a motorcycle one about adrenaline junkies. So
Wow.
yeah, so after Hell Has No Fury, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to play these kind of women, you know, women's stories, and I just want to do more. So that's what I've been doing.
It's amazing. Now, there's a lot of people that listen to the Mark and Me podcast that might be wanting to get into the industry. They might be at film school right now, listening to this. They could be thinking of going to film school, or just loving acting. Now, what advice do you give to these people that are trying, like yourself, to make a name for themselves, to get into an industry that is so difficult to break through? Is there anything that you could give them as a tip or as support that could help them on their journey?
Yeah, I mean, always be in class, always learning, right? Number one, it's a craft, you gotta love it. And I
Yeah.
think number two, when I started, I mean, I did a play. I went to one of the best, you know, schools, and I had a short film that I starred in and wrote, and we won a lot of prizes. And then, you know, people would come to my premiere, they would see my play. You know, I would always do play. I was always in a play, and I just did everything I could. And for me, all those parties and meeting people never worked for me.
No.
You know, for me, it was like I would just audition. I would pick up wherever, backstage when I first came, and I would audition, and I would just be like, if I become so undeniably good, they have to hire me, And then what the mistake that I did was I wanted to be Meryl Streep, but I'm not Meryl Streep. And people look at me as this, like, this is what I learned, like this badass, powerful, whatever. But I wanted to be Meryl Streep. So I fought, playing these tougher parts with guns. And I fought being who I was meant to be instead of just, I worked with an actor named Peter Stormare, a character actor who a lot of people don't know him, but when you see him, you're like, oh yeah, I know Peter. And he told me early on, he was like, find your niche and then build from there. And then for a long time, I did like while I was doing my music, like kind of B action movies, and not, but this is what I was being cast as. And then I started growing from there. Like, just take what you can get, just take what you can get. If you love the craft, make the best out of what you're cast in, and don't be like me, where I was like, no, I want to play, you know what I mean? Just take the gig and then work from there, and the industry will, I was okay with being in all these action movies and being like kind of typecast a little bit, until I was good enough to start, booking these other parts, and get a, more, I guess, diverse career that I'm now building for myself.
I love it, and I think it's really solid advice and honest advice. I think too many people think they can go out there, be in a room, have a glass of champagne, and the next thing they do, they're cast in this huge role, and it isn't like a fairy tale like that at all.
No, I mean, maybe it is for some, but I feel like most of us that make a living doing it, it's consistency. And, I mean, sometimes you do 100 auditions and you don't get them, and I'm one of those where I take every audition I get is life or death. I drop everything. I do everything, because they're, if, you're going to compete with me and I'm giving it all I got, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of people like me who loves it. So the competition is really high, so, and it's discouraging because it's so much if you fit the part too, so there's so many talented people and it's so much like if you fit the part. So when it does fit perfectly, you better be really good and prepared, because when those opportunities come, there's someone out there who's given it all they got, they're not phoning it in and they're going to get it. So
I love it. And my final question for you today, and what I try and do on the podcast to try and make it as original as I can, is the guest that comes on the show gets to choose the outro piece of music that is played. So at nearly 200 episodes now, we've had 200 guests that have all chosen a different piece of music. Now, it doesn't have to be one of your own. It can be any piece of music, any song. But I find that singers or people that write music or perform find this very difficult because they must be 200 songs that you could pick right now in your head. But what is a song that means an awful lot to you, that when all this episode is edited, it's all finished and ready to go out there, after we've spoken, that song that is played at the outro? What is the song that comes to your heart and your soul that you love?
God. Well, it almost sounds like it has to be like Hans Zimmer or something like that.
That would be epic. But you could honestly, people have had Beatles, they've had Rolling Stones, they've had classical pieces of music by Mozart, they've had rare soundtrack pieces of music by John Carpenter. It can be whatever you want, but it can be a song that, when I ask the question, I think comes to your heart and soul and your head straight away.
Yeah, I mean, when you first said it, the first thing that came to mind, I just can't remember what it's called. I was like, when you were saying it, I heard, as you were saying it, I heard the theme song for Inception by Hans.
Oh, amazing. I love that track.
You know what I mean? I heard that, like, but it's a little sad. So I don't know if that's appropriate. Maybe I can find something a little, but it sounds like, to me, it definitely sounds like a movie score kind of song. It sounds like, there is that, what's his name? He's British and he's up and coming. Let me just think, it's coming. He's a British composer, and I love to, one of my favorite thing is to discover, actors that I don't know or new music that I don't know. And I heard this song, and he's not that well known, and his name is Zach Hemsey.
Okay.
And he's British, and he's like my new favorite composer.
And is there a certain piece of music or track that you'd like to pick?
Vengeance again. I mean, I'm a very dark girl. My soul is very dark, but I'm thinking, does he have something that's a little more fun? Let me see. Zach Hemsey, Vengeance is like my favorite, but let me just see if he has something, because people don't know about him, and he's phenomenal. I think
I can't wait. This is my favorite thing about doing the podcast, is I get to take something new, listen, then fall in love, and then listen and listen and listen to loads of new music.
Yeah, but check it. So it's Zach and then Hemsey, Hemsey.
Lovely.
And that song that I like is Vengeance. But I mean, any of his stuff. I mean,
let's go for Vengeance. I think it fits well with what we talked about. Power, characters you play. Let's do this.
Let's do this. Yeah, he's phenomenal. Yeah.
Lovely. Well, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I can't wait to hear about these new films you're going to be in, and for the public out there to check out your work and your previous work. But honestly, I've had an absolute blast with you today, so thank you.
Me too. And when I quit, let's team up.
We'll do this podcast, and next time you're in the UK, let me know.
Okay, I'll do that.
I'll tag you in on Instagram, and we'll sort something out.
Yes, I would love that.
Brilliant. I'll speak to you soon, and thank you again for your time today.
Okay, sure.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and the gorgeous Nina. What an amazing person from start to finish. So much energy. She's an adrenaline junkie, and it really, really shows. She was so fun to talk to, and one of my favourite guests that I've had on the podcast. So a massive thank you for Nina for coming on, and I hope one day we get to meet in the flesh and have a drink and talk all things film. As we discussed on that interview, her brand new film, Hell Have No Fury, is out now, and I urge you all to go and check it out. It's a great film, and if you do, let me know, because I love reading the feedback from people that check out a film from this podcast. If you've really enjoyed today's episode, there's only one thing that I really ask, and that is for you to share it across your Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. I don't have a marketing team or loads of budget to spend on getting the name out there, and I honestly truly believe the best way to get the name out there is from word of mouth, and this can be done by you guys from retweeting an episode, sharing it on your Facebook or put it on your Instagram stories. It makes a massive difference and can bring a whole new audience to Mark and me, and really does go a long way. I'm a one-man team and I work really hard, but the promotion is down to you guys at home, so if you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it. And if you've really enjoyed Mark and me this time round, why not support me on Patreon? Each and every month, thanks to my amazing friends at Richer Sounds, I have some incredible prizes to give away just for saying thank you for supporting the podcast via Patreon. The link is on markandme.com, and each month you're guaranteed a minimum of 8 episodes. That's every single month. Some exclusive episodes that are just for people on Patreon, and so many more rewards and exclusive prizes, so please, the link is on markandme.com. It costs as little as £1 a month, and it goes a huge way and allows me to record more episodes for you guys at home. Things aren't slowing down anytime soon, and I can't wait to release my next episode in just a couple of days' time. So until then, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you all soon.